get serious about building content sites and building a profitable business online? Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. We bring you the latest field-tested tips, tricks, and strategies for building a profitable online asset. We interview industry experts, share customer success stories, and reveal our own experiences working on hundreds of sites to inspire and motivate you to make something happen. Let's do this.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. Today we have Doug Cunnington. Now, if you're not familiar with Doug Cunnington, he was the creator of the KGR keyword method. While we don't go too much into detail into that because that's been covered a lot in the past, we actually go into a lot of detail in some of the key mistakes that he experienced on his entrepreneurial journey with his niche websites. Now, he's had a couple of successful six-figure exits with his sites. He's still running a couple of his own sites and also has his own business teaching others how to build their own niche sites, and he's got courses on that too. So we cover a lot of the things that roadblocks that he ran into and things that you should avoid as you grow your niche sites as your own entrepreneur. We also cover a few things afterwards, just general affiliate site, questions and affiliate site ideas and tips. So enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by Niche Website Builders, an agency dedicated to helping people just like you build profitable content sites. Niche Website Builders are the hands-off content site marketing agency you always wished existed. It's run by content site marketers for content site marketers, and they help both investors and individuals alike build profitable online properties. They provide a fully outsourced approach to content creation, link building, and done-for-you website builds, the same approach they use on their own six-figure portfolios. For example, their content packages come with a proprietary keyword research process, are written by in-house native English speakers, formatted using templates proven to convert, and uploaded to WordPress with affiliate links added so that all you need to do is hit the publish button. Check them out at nichewebsite.builders/show. That's nichewebsite.builders/show and fill out the form to get coupon codes for 10% more content or a 10% discount on links with your first order sent right to your inbox.
Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. It's great to have Doug Cunnington on the podcast today. How are you going, Doug?
James, I'm doing great today, and thanks for inviting me. I'm pumped to be here.
No problem. I've been watching many of your YouTube live stream replays and interviews and things, so it's good to have you on here without watching you on YouTube and being able to actually talk to you myself. But for anyone who's
I appreciate the support, man.
No problem. So anyone who's not familiar with you, I think most people should be, but if they're not, do you want to just give us a brief background about yourself before we go into today's topic?
Sure. So right now, I'm a podcaster and YouTuber. I actually have a couple podcasts, and I have a few affiliate and content websites. Before that, I used to do project management for a software company, and it was management consulting. It was actually kind of boring, but I found Smart Passive Income back in 2013, got completely obsessed, listened to all the episodes, and started building sites right off the bat. And some of those didn't work out. Actually, the first few didn't work out very well at all. And I kept plugging away, a few false starts. And then in 2015, I got laid off from that consulting gig and have been working for myself since then. It's a blast, and I love sort of the job that I've created for myself.
Yeah, I think many of us get into this space from losing jobs, really, and then trying to find our own way. And you forgot to mention as well, the creator of the KGR keyword method as well. So I'll just throw that in there for anyone who wants extra research.
Yeah. Everyone can look that up, and there's several videos and a lot of case studies. And I was going to say there's also, the counterpoint. Some people are like, don't use KGR. And there's videos out there that say it's terrible. And that's really when I know that I've arrived. When people take the time to say that I'm wrong and publish it, I mean, they're paying attention. So that's a good thing.
Are you still using the KGR method now with your content sites? Is that kind of like a cornerstone of your philosophy?
It is part of the cornerstone. It's a great way to start out, but there's a lot of great case studies. A lot of people that I interview talk about just approaching informational websites where they don't even look up the search volume. So once I have a site established, then perhaps I know what keywords can work pretty well. And sometimes there's kind of a formula or a format for those keywords where you could just come up with almost endless keywords. So
Mm.
I am leaning on that. That's the thing I'm thinking about more, but KGR is still effective. I have people email me, at least a couple times a week that say, "Hey, I've used it. It's working well. And, thanks for putting out the content on it."
Oh, perfect. So let's dive. This kind of segues well into, I guess, what we want to cover about today, and that is, as a successful niche website entrepreneur or niche website builder, we've got you've probably made some mistakes within your time, whether that's in the beginning, maybe partway through, or even now recently as you've become more experienced. So, do you want to run us through some of these mistakes that you or things that you would even do differently when you started again?
Yes. Well, I still make plenty of mistakes. Usually now they're just bigger and the impact is worse. But from the beginning, I was making mistakes. And I think that was something that I was just kind of comfortable with. And I'm not sure if it's because I'm not good at sports and I wasn't like things didn't come naturally, just generally for me anyway. And I had to work hard at it. So, and actually just going back like into my childhood a little bit, it's getting deeper than we thought,
Yep.
James, already. But
No problem.
I'm pretty good at math and science, and generally I was a good student, but it didn't necessarily come naturally. It came through like a lot of studying and repetition and just like trying to do a really good job. And I think that helped me out. Like I said, things didn't necessarily come naturally. They came through, perseverance and like trying and failing and trying again. So when you go back to the smart passive income days when I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. Like, it doesn't sound like it's a complete scam. One of the first mistakes that I did was around keyword research and just not knowing how to use the tools correctly. So one of the dumb mistakes is I was looking at the competition level for specific keywords, and typically the tools that we're using are created for advertisers. So when you see like a high or low competition level, it's really for the advertisers. So it's the inverse of what we would think of as content creators. So I found what I thought was a great niche because it was like low competition. But really, it was low competitiveness because no advertisers were going after it. That also meant that no people were searching for it and it wasn't very valuable or monetizable. And I found some keywords that I thought were good, but really it wasn't worth anything. And this was, back in the day. Actually, it probably wouldn't be worth very much now, even though display ad networks are a lot more mature and the monetization is better. But I think it's still such a weird niche that I first got into that you really couldn't make any money from it. So just, I didn't know how to use the tools. And it's funny because I jumped in and I think, within 5 or 6 weeks of learning about the concepts, I was like, oh, all right, I'm going to start a website. I'm going to try to start writing content and just like get into it. So it was a little rough. And once I figured once I figured that out, I realized it was such a dumb mistake. Like I should have known better.
So with the tools now, then how are you, or how did you learn to use the tools effectively, essentially? Because I'm assuming then by talking about difficulty, you're almost talking about like the KD score and things like that, and just going by, hey, this is a green score, this is going to be an easy one to rank for.
Yeah, so the maturity of the industry and the tools has, I mean, it's been several years since I've gotten into it. So, you basically, the tools are almost all of them are very good, at least the modern ones that have been developed, say, in the last 5 years or so. And yeah, we have like Hrefs or a tool like KW Finder where you get a difficulty score that's a little more accurate than what we were looking at back in the day. And the tool that I made the mistake on was the keyword planner from Google, which literally
Hmm.
is for advertisers. And sometimes the data there does propagate over to the tools that we use. But yeah, in general, the tools are very user friendly. You'll have almost all the information you need because the tools will aggregate data from other tools, and everything's just kind of right there. So you can a lot more easily just find keywords in a niche and do the research.
Yeah. Would you recommend now for beginners to still start by using tools, or do you think they should start doing it, I guess, manually through Google itself? Do you have a preference with that?
I do like using tools. I don't have a preference on this specific tool. Some people are really uh, sort of dogmatic about what tool you should use, but most of them are pretty good. And I mean, you should still use Google. So even if you're using a tool, you should check the keyword. You'll probably get some other related long tail keywords if you start searching in Google. So I think they go hand in hand, and you should always use Google. You can use a keyword research tool if you want to, but that's just what I think. And I know there's a lot of other methods. And I would say if you find someone that you trust and you like their method that they're using, and they have like a framework or a blueprint that you could follow along, do that. I mean, that is actually one of the other mistakes that people can make. Luckily, I didn't really do this too much, but one issue is when you follow like some of the stuff that maybe I say, and then you follow like five other people, you may accidentally pick things that don't work together very well, and you end up with like a Frankenstein system that just doesn't quite work. If you're lucky, like I guess I got a little bit lucky, or maybe I made some mistakes and adjusted along the way. I pulled together pieces that worked pretty well together from a couple different places, but largely I just followed like Spencer from Niche Pursuits rather, and followed along with his case study, the original niche site project. And then from there, I started to adapt a little bit. But yeah, if you start picking things from a lot of different places, you may end up with a weird combination that just doesn't work that well.
Yeah, that's very true. So what's another mistake then that you stumbled across on your journey to building these sites?
So another one that I did very early on is I started too many sites. And this is a classic one. And when I got
This
into it,
speaks to me
I,
personally.
okay, how many sites do you have, James?
Okay. I have two of my own main sites. I have another site that Jay done a joint venture with, but that's one I'm not writing content for. And then I have another site that's kind of all off. I guess you could say my hands are off that one. And then I just started another one that's kind of
All right.
not, well, that one I'm not writing content for either. So it's easier when I'm not writing the content, but when I'm writing the content, that's when it gets a bit crazy.
And one of the problems, and I'll ask you, is it a little more stressful? Like there's a lot of different
No doubt.
like line. I mean, even if you're not writing the content, you still have to think about a couple things. Even if you're doing the JV with somebody and they're handling a lot more, you're still like, like, do we have to update the plugins? Like, are we doing offsite backups? Like, there's a couple little things that are always potentially going on with a site.
Oh yeah. Just
So
yesterday and today I need to update a couple of products on one site. I need to write and publish a piece on the other site. And then I need to edit and publish another piece on the other site. It's
yeah,
ongoing. Yep.
and when
I
you
know
wake up
that
in the middle
feeling.
of the night, like those are the ideas going in your head, and then you're like, I'll just get up and do it now. At least that's what I do. So what happened to me was I was kind of on the tail end of when some website owners were creating like dozens of websites. And I remember one of the people that I followed early on, he was like, "Yeah, I figured out how to make $1 per day from this website." So I thought I'm going to create 200 websites. And that's what he did. I mean, this was, 2010-ish or so. And I was running across this guy and I'm like, oh man, all right, 200 websites, you can make $1 a day from this site and you just scale it. And it's crazy, but like some people did it. They would create these pretty small, thin websites with kind of bad content and they would earn, hundreds of dollars per day. So I was like, oh, okay, that is a way you can do it. Turns out by the time I was starting, those people were kind of trailing off and they've figured out that there's too much admin overhead to do that effectively. And it is just stressful, like we were just talking about. So even though I kind of knew that it wasn't viable, I still would think of like new websites and then I would start buying the domains and I would still set up like a site. So I think, again, within the first, say, 3 months or so, I probably bought like 15 different domains and I know I had all of them running and I was like, okay, I at least need to publish like one article on this one thing. Turns out I realized that that was a huge waste and I just dumped most of those and just worked on like one or two and just let the domains expire the next year and just moved on. But it's just a little too much. And if I would have focused on, say, 10 of them, I would have made such slow progress on each one of them. Even if I was very committed and I had capital to invest to hire writers, I would have made like slower progress on everything rather than just, working on one thing, really focusing hard. So now, like, every chance I get, I tell people to just focus on one site. Like, don't even try to start a second one, even if you're like, well, I'll just do a little bit on that one, because it still will distract you. Like, you can't get away from it.
For
So
sure,
it's
for sure.
it's hard. It's so hard.
When would you then, in your experience, recommend or advise for someone to start a second site? Is there like maybe a certain monetary value or a certain, I don't know, maybe a certain stage in the life cycle of the website that you would look to maybe branch out into another site?
I would love to debate someone on it. I would say I think almost 100% of the time, if you focus on one site, you'll earn more money than if you split it, like almost 100% of the time. I think people don't realize the potential of their site. And I mean, I hardly have, right? I mean, I probably can't follow my own advice and I'm not following my own advice, but there's a few people that I know that have focused on one site for a very long time. And most of the time you can improve rankings a little bit more. You probably can like target more keywords and get more traffic in general. And people just don't maximize what they can do with their site. It's really hard to do, of course, because you'll have to have that focus. And a lot of people want to move on to something else. And this is one of the dangers, right? So you have, I can't remember what you said, 7 sites, something like that. You have a
Yeah, like
handful that you
5.
can,
Yeah, I've got a handful.
if you hit a snag on one of them or you get a little bored, you can very easily move on to another one and work on something a little more interesting or exciting. And you could do that multiple times a day. So even if you're pretty focused, it's so dangerous. Like our brains are not we're not good at like judging what's good for us. So it's really easy to just say, you know what? Like I hit a snag here. I'm just going to work on something else. And you keep doing that and you don't make as much progress because sometimes you just have to get your ass in the seat and like hammer it out and figure out that problem. Again, I can't follow my own advice. So it's so hard to do. I can't even
Oh
follow
yeah.
my own advice. But I would say most of the time, if people just focus on the one thing, they're probably going to be way better off and can earn more money. It may not be as fun, right? Like if your goal isn't necessarily to earn a maximum amount of money, maybe it is more fun to have another site or another project that you're working on that is a good distraction. And I respect that. I mean, that's part of the reason I do some of the stuff I do. So, do you have any guideline on when to start like a second site?
I've got no real guideline. Like the reason I started my second site was because an opportunity came up to acquire a site at a really damn good price. And I was like, well, this is like a once in a 5 year opportunity. Like I'm not going to pass it up just because my site now isn't at that full-time income level. So for me, and it's in the same niche where my two main sites are in like my career niche. So I'll be considered an expert within that. So it was just like kind of like an easy way to have one that's more my main one, which is really niche down into a certain sport, and the other one's more like general fitness, kind of a wider audience. So for me, it was just kind of like, okay, I can have both. If I get bored of writing on a specific topic on this site, then I can write on more general topics on this site. So it's kind of like that kind of trade off.
Got it. Yeah, and that's good that they like kind of work together a little bit. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but they are
Yeah, they pretty much
related.
work
So
together.
there's
Yeah.
okay. So there could be like some strategic value with that, but like another area is going after an opportunity that looks pretty good and then it distracts you again. You're working on too many projects. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
I did that like a couple times where it was a good opportunity to work with someone and it turned out that it was just a good opportunity. And once you hit a little bit of success, you will start seeing more and more opportunities. And it's so hard to just go for the good ones, or sorry, to avoid just the good ones and only go for the most exceptional, like greatest ones that have a huge upside, because there's going to be a lot of good opportunities that come your way and you have to say no to those. It's really hard to do. And for a long time, I was like, yeah, I'll work on that as part of like learning what you want to work on and how to identify the good opportunities versus the great. But that that happens all the time, and people will start making offers to work with you in some capacity, and it could be a little fun at first, but at some point so many come at you that you can pretty much say no to everything and just wait for the ones that are like totally perfect.
How many sites do you reckon that you could handle at once? Let's say handle it once profitably and done somewhat well.
If could I hire a team?
Yeah, even if you have like hiring team, all that with it.
I could probably do, this will sound counter to everything I just said. I could probably do 100. My previous
Oh
job
man,
was project management and building teams
man.
and organizations and training. So I could hire a team, have a couple layer of managers, different departments, and then I would just interact with maybe like 4 to 6 people, and then there'd be a team beneath, and I wouldn't have to hire anyone other than my managers. And so technically, I could do probably a pretty big organization. But then if I did that, I would just build my old job, which I don't want to do.
Yeah, fair enough. What about
Yeah.
if you were a solopreneur? Then, like many of the listeners on this podcast, where maybe it's just you and then a handful of writers. How many websites do you think then would be reasonable for someone to run?
I think I think maybe like 5 or 6 would be pretty reasonable. Again, I think most of the time, if you pushed all the resources to the best of the 5 or 6 sites and you just focused on the one, I'm pretty sure you'll do better and
Mm.
you'll leverage all the work and the capital and resources that you're putting into it. I think you'll leverage it more. And again, I would love to talk to someone that disagrees and they're like, oh, spread the risk. I mean, I understand like a lot of reasons why you might want to split it, but I have a hunch that if you just focus on one area, you'll do better and it'll be less stressful. So like we talked about that before. Even if you have like a manager on that brand doing all the decision making, it's still another piece of the puzzle that you have to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that's probably another reason why people like to diversify early as well, is the whole Google dance and the Google updates, and people scared of getting hit, especially with, I guess, some of the recent ones as well. And even with the recent affiliate commission cuts as well by Amazon, people kind of just looking to hedge their bets on as many different properties at once.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the business model has changed a decent amount, especially with different monetization methods and how Google is treating the affiliate review sites and the in air quotes the saturation and really the maturity. And there's just more people that are like, oh, we can have these kind of websites, so the quality is much higher than it used to be, and it's still potentially a little bit dangerous from a Google traffic standpoint.
All right, let's move on to your mistake number 3. I don't know how many mistakes you've got there, but we'll keep rolling.
All right, yeah, we'll eventually run out of them, but I think I I've done this and I've seen it a lot where you quit a little too early. And back when I started, it was a little bit easier and faster to rank and get traffic and see that the work that you're doing is effective and it's actually moving you forward. Now it's even tougher because you maybe start a brand new site, you're publishing for a little while, and you're just not seeing any positive results or feedback, and you just can't see anything working. So a lot of times people will just stop. And there were a couple sites where I was like, I really don't know. And then you don't do anything for 6 or 8 months, and then all of a sudden traffic starts picking up, and you realize you maybe should have been working on it the whole time and it would have been fine. So I've seen this more and more just as I've worked with students, and I hear from people in the audience who say, yeah, it took a long time and I had stopped working on it, but now I want to work on it again because now it's making, $200 a month and I haven't touched it in a year and a half. It's crazy. So I think if you're unsure if you're moving in the right direction, sometimes you do just have to work a little longer and wait it out. But I think one helpful thing is if you can get advice from someone that's ahead of you that can let you know if you're making some small mistake that you need to fix, or if you just need to work on it a little bit longer.
A lot of it's just kind of delayed gratification, isn't it? I mean, I've got one of my first sites I started. This was beginning of May 2020, and I published the last post in September 2020, I think it was. It's only like 30 or 40 posts. It was a pet website. It was kind of like my first foray into the space. And I've just kind of left it and let it sit. And there's still rankings moving up today. What's it, February 2022, and I haven't touched it.
Yeah.
It's just like, sometimes it just takes time.
Yep. And I think there's maybe some randomness and maybe it makes a difference, like what the topics are and that sort of thing. But a lot of times if you just work on it a little bit longer, as long as you didn't make like some catastrophic mistake, you usually can pivot and adjust a little bit and get it on the right track. And yeah, I mean, it's rare when something is completely off and like won't work at all. Usually you can pivot it and find some piece of it that's working and then scale that portion of it.
Yeah, there are some really, really bad websites and content rankings. So you'd have to be doing something really, really wrong to eventually not rank.
Exactly. All right. Another one that I have on the list here is shortcuts. And maybe I'm not too guilty of this because I am fairly patient. Like I said, I am good at persevering and such. But when I came up, people were using private blog networks and Web 2.0 blogs. So it's like blogger.com or Blogspot. And people would create these fake blogs and publish, 3 or 4 articles that were, pretty much garbage, and then link build to their site. And then the private blog networks were typically expired domains where people would link from the expired domain to their money website. And this was a widely accepted practice. Everyone was basically doing it. And then our sites would get penalized and would get hit. So that's just a little form of a shortcut. Some people still use PBNs effectively. Some people still, build links that aren't that great. I think in the form of today, people are looking at AI writers a lot. And I have heard from people that say, yeah, if you use an AI writer as a tool, something like what did they change the name to? Jasper.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a few of them out there, but I do hear like you can use the AI writers as a tool, but it's certainly a form of a shortcut. And I've heard generally that the tools, if you don't know how to use them, the content will be kind of garbage. But usually, anytime you're looking for a shortcut, it will eventually not be the best decision that you can make. You might still be able to get away with it, and like I said, some people are using the AI writers kind of surgically, and they're going through and editing things, and maybe it looks totally fine because a person is going back and making sure it sounds natural, checking the facts or whatever. So that could be okay. But if you're looking for a shortcut, you're probably making a worse decision than if you had a longer time scale. So if I'm giving advice to people, I would say look for some, like, don't try to do things faster. Just have a longer timeline and you'll probably make a better decision. So don't think 4 to 6 months, think 4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to be in a hurry.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really important, that long-term thinking rather than the months. Actually, uh, the last podcast, this one with Chris Malone, he's killing it with AI content right now, but he says the same thing as you. Like, you need to be in there editing it and guiding the AI. You can't just put in a topic and let it spit out 1,000-word article and publish it. Well, I mean, what's that site that's killing it? Some boardgametips.com or something that has like 50,000 pages. I mean, I guess that might be an example of crap AI content absolutely
Right.
killing it. But I think that's few and far between, and obviously it's not sustainable long term as well. So that kind of shortcut will eventually bite you in the ass.
Right. And I think, I need to find that person and talk to them because I haven't heard from anyone that's using it like on a large scale, like very
Mm.
successfully. I just haven't chatted with anyone yet. I'm sure they're
I'll
out
link you
there,
up.
but okay, thanks. Like that board game site, like I imagine at some point, like that's just going to die in some capacity. Cause like
Yeah.
either I've heard some people theorize that the advertisers, like any monetization, the advertisers will eventually say, we don't want our stuff on that site because it's garbage. I'm not sure if the users, like if the visitors will eventually figure out, like if Google can get the feedback from the visitors that that was a bad website or not. I haven't looked at the site, but I have heard of it. So,
Yeah. And then I guess with the PBNs as well, this is something I guess more on a personal interest, because I guess the way PBNs were done and things, I guess, yeah, they were dodgy, shit content and crappy things like that. But I guess if you have maybe a network of sites within your niche that are all legitimate sites, I guess that could almost be like, it wouldn't be a shortcut because it's going to take you long to build up these sites, but these sites that kind of link together, if you have them within the same niche, that could almost be like I guess you could say like a fortress within your niche then, considering each site is essentially its own website on its own, ranking for different keywords with good content, but they just link together. That would be considered different to like a crappy PBN network.
yeah, I think that would probably be more acceptable and you probably wouldn't run into the issues. What we were doing back in the day was, I think my network was maybe like 50 or 60 sites. So I had these kind of crappy expired domains that had good metrics. And then, like you said, the content wasn't very good. And what we were doing was linking, to our sites, but then I had other friends who had 50 or 60 domains as well. And then we would have like a handful of us together and we would all trade links. So at some point, I mean, it wouldn't even be that hard. If you mapped everything out, you could see like all the links to these money sites are coming from these 400 domains.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty clear. And then further, right, there were companies selling those links. So they called them private blog networks, but they were really public networks. So those would be thousands of sites and they would sell links to thousands of people. And then again, if you connect the dots, if someone runs a little script and they connect everything, it's like, oh, they get all these sites are obviously in this agreement. So we all got penalized. A lot of sites went down. So, and that was, I mean, that was something like we did a few times and I did a few times getting penalized before I realized I don't want to do that anymore. Things have shifted. I mean, people that use PBNs now look out for things because they know what to look out for now.
Yeah. All right. What's your next mistake you got on your list?
So, kind of related to the shortcuts is just estimating time and effort. So, generally, things take much longer than you think they will. And it could be, maybe like how long it is to rank, but also a lot of us are on limited time. And when I was starting the business, I had a day job and I woke up early and I only had a little bit of time that I could work on stuff. So I'm really bad. And a lot of people are really bad at estimating how long a given task will take, especially if you have like a long to do list or something. And you're like, all right, that'll be like 15 minutes and 15. And okay, like I should be able to get all this stuff done. But really, it only takes 15 minutes if everything is perfect. And things are rarely perfect. So when I was planning out like my project and all the work that I was going to do, it usually took me far longer than I thought. It also extends to estimating cost. So, as my project manager job taught me, a lot of times we underestimate the cost. There's maybe like additional fees, or we run into an issue and then it just costs a little bit more. So, if people have a better understanding of how long things are going to take, they'll probably be happier because then your expectations are going to match up a little bit better with reality. And that was so frustrating when I would like work on something and then I would only get like 25% done. And again, if you got a couple sites going and that happens again and again, like you always feel a little bit behind and stressed out, which I mean, you don't want to be stressed out. It just makes everything more difficult.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Just like I was editing an article, I think today and yesterday. I'm like, yep, sweet. I just got to take it and publish it. But then you got to read through it, format it, put it through Grammarly. Then that takes time to put it through Grammarly, and then put it into WordPress. Then format it in WordPress, and then publish it. And then that whole process takes 30 minutes to an hour.
Yep. And I mean, like it really this is more of like a life skill even, but I have a friend who he's kind of perpetually late to stuff. I'm fairly punctual. I like to be on time or a little bit early. And I think, well, there's many issues that can pop up, but one of the big ones is just transportation time. So you may think, hey, it takes 15 minutes to get to the mall or something like that. And that is only if everything goes perfectly, you get every traffic light and there's no other cars on the road. But 95% of the time, it's not the case. Most of the time, it takes 10 minutes longer than that. And if you always assume the best case scenario, which is almost never going to happen, you're always late. So if you get that guy on the first meeting of the day, you may be all right because his whole day didn't cascade later and later. But it's sort of similar like to maybe you go to the doctor's office or the dentist office where like if you get that first appointment, you're probably okay. But all through the day, like every
Yeah, later
session
and
is
later.
going 10% longer. And then you're in a you're in a bad position if you get that last appointment.
Yep, for sure. All right, you got another mistake for us?
Yep, and this will be the last one here. And
All right.
this took a little while for me. It's around getting outside help and or like taking courses. So at some point I realized I like need some help and I was starting to earn a little money. So I was able to invest in courses, which was super helpful because instead of me having to make like some of the mistakes that I've told you about today, I could just see how someone else has done this and see examples of successful websites or projects or whatever it is. It could be anything. And now there are so many online course platforms. Like you could probably find a
Mm.
course on anything. Recently, I've been watching all these YouTube videos of people building guitars, which is it's so satisfying to watch someone like build an acoustic guitar like by hand, and they're carving and they're gluing it together. Like I've been watching a lot of these
That must be
videos,
your new niche
and
site then.
it would be cool. I was like, when my schedule opens up, I may get one of those kits and like build one of them. But it is it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And so I'm watching all these videos, and there's online courses for guitar building, and there's like
Mm.
in-person courses. You can go for a week. They have all the equipment, they put everything together for you, and whatever it is you want to learn, like you can get outside help. You can get like an expert to help you out and just show you what to do. And sometimes, like in this example of guitar building, they may have tools that I like don't have or can't afford and don't know how to use, and they can let you use them and put it together. I know it doesn't translate perfectly to building websites, but you may be able to get a consultation with someone that can say, hey, if you do these handful of things, it'll optimize whatever. I can do some further analysis with this tool that I have, but you don't have. And then you're in a much better position because you have data and information that you wouldn't have before, and then expert opinions that will hopefully like move you forward. So I would say don't be afraid to invest in education. And I will, some people are probably like, Doug, you sell courses. Yes, I do sell courses, and it is, a nice way for me to mention it. But I mean, the fact is, when you get to a point where you can invest to talk to experts to help you out, usually it's money well spent, and you get to make like deeper connections. Sometimes, right? Let's not say it's courses. Maybe it's an in-person conference, which you're able to be around other people that have also invested money and they are very serious about, whatever it is you're there for. So it's also potentially a networking thing. And I've taken several courses that are between like $2,000 and $5,000, and it's a great way to network because everyone else has skin in the game too, and usually you're working around people that are kind of the same level as you, and it's hard to find just walking around in daily life. You may not be around someone in that same position.
Mm. Yeah, I think that course route's a good place to start. Like that's how I got my start. Like because obviously I'd already been writing online for different websites and things. I had an old business website I did some blogging on, but I didn't know about SEO. Didn't know about any of that. It wasn't until I got a course that kind of gave me the framework. Like, oh, okay, this is what you need to do. Blah 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 blah, and then you can kind of apply from there. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting in the dark unless you've gone down the rabbit hole of as many YouTube videos as you can find.
Right. And the danger there, I mean, like I was saying, there's all these guitar building videos, and some of them are very good, but especially with the online marketing area, there's so much content, and sometimes it's not like all in the right order, or you may end up, like I said earlier, like putting together pieces of
Yeah.
techniques that don't quite work together. And sometimes it's best to get the streamlined version with all the stuff you need and all the stuff you don't need removed. And that makes it a lot easier. But you certainly can just put together, your own sort of curriculum from free. I mean, you could find how to do almost anything on YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm going to change tact a little bit since we've covered the mistakes. I wanted to ask you, how are you currently monetizing your niche sites? Not your personal brand because that's kind of like your courses and stuff like that, but your niche sites that are out of the public eye. Is that just mainly display ads and affiliate?
Yeah, display ads and affiliate. Amazon still is great for the basically the diversity of products. The commission rates aren't great, and ideally, you can find some software products or digital products like courses, which, like I said, like you can find courses on almost anything if you
Yeah.
hunt around. And another area that people don't look in too much, and I haven't gone too deep into this, but there are plenty of e-commerce and drop shipping type sites that you can, see that they're running ads selling their products. So you know that they're spending on marketing. So those may already have an affiliate program set up, but if they don't, you do know that they're spending money on advertising. So you may be able to build a relationship with them. And then I monetize with Ezoic from a ad perspective, and they're great. I go with a premium plan over there. So
Solid. Have you tried the other, I guess, ad networks like Mediafine, AdThrive, or you just like to stick with Ezoic?
I stick with Ezoic, and they sponsor my show. So I mean, I should disclose that, but I'm a company man, so Ezoic.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair enough. And then I guess we touched on that dropshipping part too. Have you ever considered, I don't know if any of your niches, I guess, cover physical products, but have you ever thought about adding almost like a physical product store onto your niche site to diversify the monetization? I think you had a video on something a few months ago about trying to find dropshipping products, actually.
Potentially. There's so many videos I don't even remember, but that sounds like something I might talk about. I have looked into it, and actually early on with my very first sites, I thought about it, and I mean this is back 2014 or so, and I knew I was selling a whole lot of a specific kind of product, and thought about going that route. It was when FBA was coming up, becoming a little bit more popular. So I thought about it and decided to not do it. And I have never gone any farther into the e-commerce space or drop shipping or anything. I ended up finding a method that worked pretty well, and I just stuck with it and kept refining that. And it continues to work well. I've shifted, some things. Like I said, I'm moving more towards display ads, especially with the latest project that I'm working on, where I think I found something where it's kind of like unlimited keywords. I'll never get to all of them, and that's pretty attractive. Like you said, you have Google potentially making algorithm updates that are specific around product reviews. Now, I still have plenty of product reviews, don't get me wrong. The amount that you can earn per visitor typically is a lot higher when you're working with an affiliate model, but they do work very well together. And if you have a site that has maybe the majority, say like 60 or 70% informational, and then the other part is affiliate, I mean, it's a good combo. You're probably earning a pretty diverse set, and you can, if you're getting a lot of traffic, you potentially can make one-off deals or have, banner advertisements for some of the vendors and retailers and people that build stuff for the specific products.
What's your opinion then on that informational to buyer intent content ratio? Because obviously, do you think do you think that product update was specifically towards having too much buyer intent content, or is it more geared towards the fact that a lot of the buyer intent content is crap?
I don't know. I haven't looked at enough information to make a very educated decision on that. I So to hedge, I would say I bet it's a combo of the two. I bet it's a combo of the two a little bit, but I also think a person, if they looked, they could find examples of each one to prove that that's the case. But I bet it's a combo of the two. And I mean, the good part with not all niches have this, but you usually can find many, many informational keywords. And as the display ad companies are able to, like, and networks are helping you earn more money, and there's a lot of money in ads, I think it's a viable route to aim for just a lot more informational content, and at least you're sort of tempering the impact of an update like that.
That's a fair call. I want to ask you this question as well. I guess this might be for maybe those who are near the beginning of their journeys and kind of want to see, I guess, what how their role will change as they grow. So you've had a couple of big website exits, you've got now a portfolio, I guess you sustain a good living from your websites. How does your day-to-day, I guess, role with your websites differ now than it did when you started? So I'm assuming when you started, correct me if I'm wrong, that you probably wrote a lot of your own content. It did a lot of the, I guess, grunt work yourself. Whereas now I'm going to assume that a lot of it is a little more hands off. So how does that differ, I guess, where you are now compared to, I guess, almost how you started or near the beginning?
So a quick correction. So I don't have a portfolio, and I've always kept things smaller. So at least I'm consistent with that. And I'm like, I don't want to have more. So I have a couple sites that I've like ignored and just they've slowly withered. And I spent time on things that were growing. And then, like you said, I had a couple exits there. So to get to the heart of your question, when I started, and this will be a roundabout question or answer here, but
Yeah.
when I started, I did have the insight that I wanted to have courses and earn money from a different place. So I grew slower, but I consistently had roughly 50% of the revenue from courses and my own products, and then 50% from websites. So that, you know, grew, and roughly the ratio has stayed the same, which is kind of crazy, but it's a, great hedge. So if I ever ran into an issue, like things were going to be okay. It did take me longer to grow both pieces of the business though. So I just want to mention that as time went on, yeah, I did much less of the actual work. And I would say the first 2 years, I probably did most of the writing, but I was outsourcing from the beginning as well. Again, one of the skills that I have is around hiring people and training and creating job aids and stuff like that. So it was pretty straightforward for me to hire people and bring them on board them and get them working. As time went on, I eventually was doing almost zero of the writing or any of the actual work, and it was more like visionary stuff and then the planning and execution. And then, I mean, it was probably only like 10% of the work on a site is what I would do. And it was around like setting things up initially and then more like maintenance and infrastructure stuff. And as time has gone on, there's certain pieces that I've enjoyed more and I'll do more of that. So I would encourage people, as you're working on stuff, think about how you want your day to look and how many hours you want to work and, what your overall goals are. And I think I saw in a forum recently, someone was like, how do I learn like 8-figure business skills? Or there was another one that was similar, and it was like, here's my plan to earn like $100,000 per month. And those are interesting headlines. And maybe at one point I would have been more interested in that, but I don't want to have an 8 or 9 figure company. I don't want to have, I was like, I could probably manage like 100 sites, but I'd have to hire a lot of people and build a team. And I just don't want to do that. Other people do, and that's fantastic. And they can, work on that. But I would much rather spend less time at this keyboard and go do something outside or take days off and just not work on things. And that's how I've shaped my day. And that's how I shape my week. And typically, I'm probably working like 15 to 20 hours a week or so. It's kind of the
Nice.
sweet spot for me. I can get some things done. There's some urgency because, 15 to 20 hours a week is not a huge amount of time. And I enjoy the work that I'm working on because I've gotten rid of and stopped doing things that I don't like, or I've delegated them to, someone who's better at it than me. And then again, just to summarize, I'm working on the stuff that I like. I'm not doing the things I don't like, and I'm not in front of the computer too much. So I would encourage people to like figure that part out. I mean, a lot of people will want to spend time with their
Yeah.
family, or they'll want to spend it on their hobby or something like that. Some people do like to work a lot, and I would say be careful and I've been in this situation because I like what I'm doing. It's easy to work a lot more than you need to and then miss out on the stuff that we were trying to get to in the beginning. So, like I said, I don't want to sit in front of the
Yeah.
computer more, but I like what I'm doing, so it's easy for me to like get in the zone and then keep working on it. And I have to stop because it's not leading to anything more. Like I said, $100,000 a month. I mean, that's a lot of money. What are you going to do with that? Unless you have like a really good reason to earn $100,000 a month, it's probably, it's more of a vanity thing, or you're just chasing your tail, or something like that. I
No,
don't
I
know. Do
love.
you have any thoughts on that?
No, I love that. Like, I think I'm similar to you with that as well. I mean, I enjoy doing it. I know that every single thing that I do is one step closer, one step further to growing the website, extra revenue, whatever it is, safeguarding future stuff. And so you just get in this cycle where all day you just want to pump stuff out, another article, edit this, do this, and it becomes a cycle that way where you've kind of done this to try to give yourself freedom, but you're working more hours than you did, when you didn't have freedom working a whatever job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were certainly times like right after I got laid off, and I didn't know exactly what I should work on, and I was probably putting in more hours as I was growing the business. But luckily for me, and not everyone's like me, so I can appreciate the fact if you're like, hey, I want to do something different. But for me, I did realize it's really easy to keep working on something for longer than you need to. And it's also, um, it's not getting me to the place that I want to go. So if I played it out for 18 months, is that where I want to be? Like if this keeps growing bigger and bigger, is that where I want to be? Or would I rather have a little more free time and do leisurely things like play more guitar? I started taking guitar lessons, and I'm not that good at it. And it's kind of fun to work on something that you suck
Mm.
at. And it's not like I'm going to be playing in front of anyone, so it's purely a leisurely thing, and I lose track of time doing it. It's a great just escape. So I'm trying to do other things like that because technically I would want to do more of that, but it is easy to just like keep sending more emails or something like that.
Yeah, we should preface this though. If you're just starting your own site, don't start looking at the 15 to 20-hour work week and thinking you're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I busted my ass for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, make no mistake
Yeah.
about that. It was definitely a lot of work, and there was a lot of waste. And actually, side point, you didn't ask this question, but I know a lot of my friends that I used to work with in the corporate world, they're like, "Ah, that's cool what you're doing, but I don't want to work on something if I don't know if it's going to work or not. Like, I don't want to waste my time." And you won't know. That is the
Mm.
exciting part. Like, you don't know if it's going to work. You might look back and think, "Oh, that was a waste of time." Usually it's not. Usually you're working on something where you learned, or you were able to pivot, but you're not guaranteed anything. Like, you won't know if it's going to work until after you do the work. So you just have to put it
Yeah.
in. And that's, I mean, that's holding a lot of the people that I know back because they're like, well, I'll just stick with what I'm doing.
Yeah. You don't know it's going to work until it does work. And I think the biggest thing is having that belief that, you know, no matter what, that it is going to work. I mean, even if your first one fails, like each maybe new site or new project you do, you're going to take something from that you've learned, and you're going to be able to implement that on whatever it is you're doing here, and then continue on. Each new whatever project you start or continue on, or refinements you make, will all be things that you've learned from that say that didn't work as well.
And if you can choose projects, I heard this from Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator. If you could choose projects where even if it fails, you learn something or you improve your network or some
Mm.
positive benefit, like that's how you should choose your project. So even if it completely fails from what you were trying to do, you still have a valuable lesson from it, or you have new contacts in a new industry, or if you work on a website and you start writing, at least you know how to format content, maybe find some keywords, you know how to set up a website, which you actually can go do that as a service and make money right away. So if your website doesn't work out, you can set up, maybe there's food trucks or restaurants in your town. You can set up websites for them. They'll pay you money
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, with the internet now, there's just unlimited ways to make money. Well, we've reached our hour mark. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to this, Doug, or if you want to wrap it up there, you let me know.
I'm good. This has been fantastic, James.
No, thank you for coming on, Doug. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Until the next episode, goodbye.